Hello guys, welcome back into my Koenigsegg Jesko modeling series. In the previous episode of the series, we started by modeling the car's hood. And in this video, we'll go through the process of modeling the car's doors and windshield. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, make sure to watch it before continuing with this video, as it's going to be necessary for following along. You might even want to join my free Discord channel. There you can get help not just from me, but also from other Blender users on any of your projects. There you'll also find all the free resources I use in my videos, along with unedited footage of each episode, which can give you a deeper understanding of the tools and techniques I use to build my models. This said, remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, since it truly helps me bring you new content every week. And without further ado, let's get started. Before starting to model the doors, we'll firstly have to adjust the shape of the hood we modeled in the last part, since I kind of messed it up. The first thing I did was selecting these faces on the hood's edge. Then I isolated them with Ctrl+I+H. Then I simply messed around with these edges, switching from side to top view to align them correctly. Meanwhile, I also made sure my topology was correct and balanced to avoid shading issues. Here's what your hood should look like in the end. Now we're going to cut out this piece from here, where I'm going to put a Koenigsegg logo later on. I simply took out my knife tool with K and traced these lines. Then I switched my pivot point to individual origins and pressed S+Z+0 to straighten these lines. The only thing you need to do now is separate this faces to a new object with P. Then create a little gap here and create some supporting faces on the inside to give it some depth. Obviously, don't forget to recalculate your normal with Shift+N to avoid this type of issues. And don't forget to apply the appropriate bevels from the Properties panel. Repeat the same process for the sides. And now we're ready to start modeling the doors. We'll begin by modeling the car's skirt, starting from this vertex here. You can delete these faces since we don't need them anymore. Then select this vertex and extrude from side view using E. Here on the back of the car, Make sure there are 7 vertices in total, since they're going to be very useful later on. Then use the space and relax loop tools to refine the shape. And to complete outlining this part here, place your 3D cursor on this vertex, extrude this other vertex, and bring it at the same height as your cursor with S plus Z plus 0. Then add 6 loop cuts and adjust them on the blueprint. Now, before giving thickness to this part of the car, adjust the vertices we have just created on the Y-axis too. Then to give it thickness, you'll have to select all of these edges, making sure this one is the active point. Then switch your pivot to active point, duplicate, and press Shift plus S plus 7 to snap our duplicated segment to our cursor. And finally select everything with A and merge duplicated vertices with M, then by distance. So now you're able to fill all of this faces by creating one manually, then selecting this edge here and holding F. And you're also able to fill this portion by connecting these 2 vertices, adding 5 vertices between them, and use grid fill. Now let's move on modeling this lower part right above the carbon miniskirt. First of all, delete these faces too, since we don't need them now. Then simply extrude from here along this line. And use the same process we used earlier to form this part of the car's rim. Let's continue modeling from here now. Extrude this vertex. And use the method I explained earlier to duplicate this curve. Then simply fill from here and use loop tools to smooth out your geometry. Now let's go on the other side of our model. Extrude 3 vertices around the rim. Then select all of these and extrude down. You can now use your knife tool to cut our desired shape. And you can simply delete this geometry. And to fill this, add 2 loop cuts and create the faces. Also, don't forget to smooth out your geometry using loop tools. And select these faces to deflate them with Alt plus S. And don't forget to fill this faces on the back of the skirt. But let's complete this now. First of all, let's fill this part here. Start by connecting these 2 vertices. Then add 3 vertices between them and form this little curve. Now add 2 loop cuts on this side. Use loop tools to space the edges and grid fill. If you want, you can also apply seams all around the edge of the carbon miniskirt. This way, it's going to be much easier to separate it from the rest of the car later on. At this point, add a loop cut here. Then select these edges and duplicate them. Then bring them down a little and merge these 2 vertices. And now mark this as a seam and fill the faces. Now let's separate our miniskirt from the rest with L to select it, then P to separate it. And then to add some supporting faces at the back of our geometry, select this border. Use double G to slide it slightly back, then fix this edge and extrude some faces back. To do that, I use the method I explained to you at the beginning of the video. Obviously, I applied the appropriate bevels on sharp corners, and then I repeated the same process on the other side. Finally, to complete the lower side of our doors, we just need to model this part here. Firstly, you'll have to delete this. Then select these edges and extrude them on the y-axis. Move this vertex to match the shape of our reference. Then also bevel this edges. Now that this part is ready, we can shift our focus on giving the right shape to the edge loop we just extruded. Firstly, isolate it, then using your references, give it more or less this shape. Now you need to flatten this part to match the blueprint. And to finish it off, add a loop cut. Then to give it a clean curve, select the 2 vertices on the sides of our loop cut and place your 3D cursor between them. Then select the vertex in the middle and press S plus Z plus 0 to position it at the height of your cursor. Repeat the operation for the entire miniskirt. Now we need to create a sharp corner around the car's rim. And to do that, I added a loop cut here, making sure the even box is ticked. Then I aligned every vertex of the loop cut we just made to its corresponding vertex. I also selected these vertices and extruded them down to make our skirt more interesting. Finally, we can start modeling the inside of our car's miniskirts, where all the airflow passes through and generates downforce. First of all, place your 3D cursor here. Then select these vertices right here and extrude them. Now you can just scale them towards your 3D cursor to get some geometry we can use. Just place your cursor here and scale the entire edge loop on the Y-axis. Now pick this edge and extrude it 2 times to create the rear part of the airflow system. Then I quickly adjusted the geometry to better fit the car's shape. I also created another edge by placing my cursor here and using extrusion and scaling. Before continuing to model, let's firstly adjust this part here. What I did was scaling this down a bit, then sliding it up to connect it to the rest of the geometry. I also adjusted this curve to make it more smooth. Now add a loop cut here, since we're going to use it to create a little slope by lowering this vertex. And then we're going to fill all of this up. Select these 3 edges, then extrude to match the miniskirt's topology. Then go into side view and adjust all the edges on the Z-axis. Now you can fill the faces. Now we need to adjust this geometry to match the car's curved shape. To do that, place your 3D cursor on the inner vertex of this border, then select all the way into the center of the car and scale down on the Y-axis. Now extrude from here and continue using this method until you reach this point. Now we're ready to adjust the other side of our car's airflow system. First of all, place your 3D cursor on this vertex here. Then select these edges, extrude them, and align them with the cursor on the X-axis. Once you did that, add a loop cut. Then merge these vertices together and create a soft curve like this to reach our desired shape. And now you can extrude another face here that is going to be where our other geometry is going to connect. To do this, add 3 loop cuts. Then connect these and add 2 vertices in between. And finally, create a little curve and lower this accordingly. Now repeat the process with these vertices. And finally fill here, and grid fill here. Now that everything's ready, we can start modeling the upper part of the door. Select this edge loop and extrude it upwards. And now adjust the vertices around the inner door's border. Extrude everything up again and continue adjusting all the vertices following your blueprint. I temporarily used my knife tool to redirect some topology here. This isn't a good solution, but I'll fix it later. Once all my vertices were in place, I also picked this edge loop and moved it on the Y-axis to give it the right form. The next thing I did was surely fixing the topology issue I talked to you about earlier. What I did was sliding this vertex all the way to the left. Then I dissolved these vertices and merged the duplicates. Finally, to get rid of this triangle, I tiered this vertex with V and slided it left to create a new face. Let's focus on modeling this part of the door now. Start by sliding this vertex here, then quickly use your loop tools to tidy up your geometry. Then select these vertices here and extrude them outwards. Now isolate these and straighten them to match the car's shape. And finally add a loop cut here and create this face. Now to model the rest of our door, we'll start by modifying some of our existing geometry to fit our needs. That's why I selected all of these edges from our hood. I duplicated them and separated to a new object. Then I rejoined everything back to one object. Then I moved the copy of our curve sideways and merge some vertices. Now we can connect this geometry to the rest of our door. Even if the geometry we created is pretty accurate, we'll still need to do some modifications before continuing to model. That's why I placed my 3D cursor here and selected the rest of the edge loop to adjust it easily using scale. Now to extend your door, place your 3D cursor here, then duplicate this edge loop. Make sure that your active point is this vertex right here. Then set your pivot point to active element and press Shift plus S plus 7. This way, the whole segment is going to snap onto your 3D cursor and you can just merge your duplicates with M, then by distance to attach it to the rest of the model. Then you can scale the segment on the Z-axis to match the correct height, and align all the vertices to your blueprint on the X-axis. You'll have to repeat the same process from top view. And you'll obviously need to remember to use the Relax Loop tool from time to time in order for your geometry to look smooth. Once you're happy with how your edge looks, you can go ahead to select both of these. Then go here to Select, check or deselect, and dissolve the vertices to reduce poly count. And finally, fill everything up. After filling up this portion of the door, I marked all the edges on the border of the actual door as a seam, since we can better distinguish them this way. Now on side view, you can see we need an edge right here to create a sharp corner. So simply add it using your knife tool. And don't forget to use loop tools to smooth out the shape immediately after. Now you can simply duplicate the edges right here and snap them to the next vertex to continue modeling the door panel. Simply repeat this same operation to model the major part of the door. Obviously, make sure each edge loop is at the correct height using scale. Here we also need to align an edge loop to this line right here, that it's going to be part of another component of the car's aerodynamics. Make sure to adjust all the edge loops inside top view too. Then just continue modeling following these methods. In case your edge loops look messy like this, you'll just need to smooth them out with the Relax Loop tool. This way, everything should come up really good. Once you arrive at this point, align all the vertices to the back border of the door panel. Then fill all of them. Now, before continuing to model, we need to adjust this edge here from top view. Then adjust all of the vertices around the edge to give it the proper form. And then space them correctly using your loop tools. Let's continue on by adding details now. I'm going to put vertices all around this line on my blueprint. Then I'm going to use all of this geometry to refine the car's shape. Now that our shape is ready, we can focus on making this straight edge on the side of the car. To do that, firstly realign this edge to the blueprint in case it got out of place while you were using loop tools. Then place your 3D cursor here and scale the edge on the Y-axis. Finally, before continuing with modeling the car's roof, we need to adjust the bevel situation on this zone right here. For this reason, I selected these 3 edge loops right here and beveled them using a 1-segment bevel with the miter outer to arc and loop slide disabled. Then I used my loop tools to space these vertices and release tension on this curve. And to finish this off, I remade this bevel too. I used a 2-segment bevel with a shape of 0.5. Then I increasingly scaled down each little bevel to create this cool effect. Finally, our car's door is complete. Now we can focus on modeling the roof, starting from this side mirror. The first thing you need to do is extrude these edges up to fit the shape. Then add 2 more loop cuts. Now go into front view and adjust the loop cuts we added to fit the car's shape. Then pick all of these edge loops and extrude them inward to create some depth. Let's move on modeling the car windows. Select these vertices, duplicate them, and separate them to a new object. Then push all of these new vertices on the Y-axis and extrude the window's outline from here. You'll have to make sure there are the same number of vertices on the opposite sides on the window. So 5 vertices for the vertical sides and 7 vertices for the horizontal ones. After that, you can go into side view. Adjust these vertices here, then fill everything using grid fill. Here use Shift+N to recalculate the normals. To make this window maintain the correct shape, I also added some reinforcing loop tools on these 3 sides. Now we're going to quickly do the rubber seals around the window. Firstly, add another edge loop here. Then select all of these, duplicate them, and adjust them a little. Once you're happy, bring them back a little and extrude them to give volume. The next step is going to be modeling the front windshield. Start by selecting all the vertex around the border of the windshield, duplicate them, and separate them to a new object. Now merge these two. Then connect the vertices to create one big edge loop. At this point, position your 3D cursor here and extrude everything towards it to get a similar shape to the bottom. Then adapt this to fit the blueprint shape. Once you get something similar to this, you can add 3 loop cuts to your windshield and adapt them to fit its curvature. Then add 4 more to enhance topology and optimize your shading. Since we now need to create all the rubber seals around the windshield and windows, we'll now have to slightly bring the window closer to the windshield. So that we can now duplicate these edges right here and separate them to a new object. Then you simply need to equalize the number of edges on both sides and repeat the same process we adopted earlier to make the other rubber seal. And using the same method, create a rubber seal for the top part of the windshield too. To make the windshield a little more complete, I also made another rubber seal on the bottom part of the windshield, as well with a support for the windshield wiper that we're going to create in another video. Now, the last thing we're going to create for this video is going to be the roof. Start by picking this faces, Then duplicate them. Add a loop cut in between them and eliminate the rest. Once you did that, separate this to a new object and begin extruding along the upper border of the side window. Now select these edges and extrude them. Then pick this edge and extrude it too. Select these edges and extrude them on the Y-axis. Then add 7 loop cut and connect them like this to the rest of the geometry. What you need to do after that is adjust all of these vertices to create a smooth curve here, in order to create the curved part of the roof. Then finally add 3 loop cuts here and close this hole. Since this part right here is pretty complicated, I suggest you now to take a little bit of time to perfectionate the shape of your roof. You just need to follow your blueprint and smooth out all the curved shapes. Here's how my model looks after about 15 minutes. When your roof is ready, make a 1-segment bevel here to create a soft but tight corner. Then create another one here and bring the vertices in the middle higher gradually to create this cool effect. And finally duplicate the vertices at the center of the roof. Then place your cursor here and extrude towards it. Finally add 2 loop cut here and then close everything. Complete your roof by bridging these 2 borders. Then separate the faces you just created and create a rubber seal with it. And that's the final result for this video. As always, thank you for watching until the end of this video. In the next part, we're going to focus on modeling the rear part of the car, so the rear bumper, the spoiler, and much more. A big thank you also goes out to my Patreon members that support me through making these videos. And with this said, I'll see you in the next one.